Good morning. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Happy smiles. This meeting is called to order. This time we'll have notice of meeting minutes by Commissioner Gary Coher.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the July 2023 Commission meeting was distributed on July 18, 2023. The appropriate meeting, the appropriate media, and other groups of individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and the agenda were posted at the Department of Disability Special Needs Central Office and on their website. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided for individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you. Once again, welcome. Welcome to all to South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. It's a great honor and a great pleasure to see each and every one of you, those in the audience and those on Teams. I did notice from Commissioner Woodhead, we have some very, very special friends of ours. Please take this moment.
My parents, I would like to welcome my parents who are visiting from Tennessee.
Please stand.
Ken and Carol Poucher.
All right. Give them a hand. Let's go to the invocation. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to adopt the agenda before we pray.
Yes.
I'm sure that all the commissioners have had a chance to review the agenda. I need a motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. So ordered. Invocation. Dear God, we come today thanking you in advance for a good meeting, a productive meeting. Dear God, we want to thank you for creating South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. We want to especially thank you for the mandate. Mandate, dear God, is for us to oversee. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to oversee as you have stated in the mandate. Thank you, dear God, for the executive branch, starting with our director and the entire staff. Many of them are gathered here, dear God, and I've had the opportunity to not just meet them, but to work with them and to understand them. And dear God, I just want to take this moment to thank you for giving this commission such a team. Such a team. We as commissioners are appreciative because it makes our oversight burden lighter. Their job is to manage. Our job is to oversee. And that's what we will do because you have entrusted us with those mandates. We thank you also, Lord, for the workforce, those that are not here, down to the janitor, dear God. Touch him or her right now. Because that person brings about good health for those that we have been mandated to serve. It's very important that the least of us, the least of them, get the same kind of treatment as I as chair or any one of us as commissioners. Then, dear God, there's DSN boards around the state of South Carolina that have been entrusted to take care of those that cannot take care of themselves. We ask you now to touch them with your finger of love. Give them your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding that those that they have been entrusted to take care of are done so professionally. No hurt, no harm, no danger. They can't take care of themselves. That's been entrusted upon us, all of us in this room, those that are around the state of South Carolina that have that responsibility. And we thank you, dear God, once again for this commission, this executive staff that's doing a marvelous job. We thank you for the team, because it's through the team effort that we will serve those with disabilities and special needs. Hear my prayer, hear our prayer, O Lord. In Jesus' precious name, I pray, we pray, man pray. Amen.
Mr. Chairman, could I have 1 second to clarify what we will be covering on the agenda and see if this is okay with the commission if we do this? There was a motion that I made. The reason I'm bringing it up, I made the motion at the last meeting to.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda,
Yes.
But I'm asking that we withdraw it to a later time. And
Here's what we'll do. When we get to that point.
is that when you want me to
Yes.
bring that up? Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay, now we need the approval of the June 15th, 2023 commission meeting minutes. I need a motion.
That's okay.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered. Now we have the public input.
Question that I do have on that, if I could ask.
Yes.
I apologize, being difficult here. I'm not trying to be. I think that we established a policy some time ago about individuals who are attorneys who have a case in front that they cannot come and speak on that, certainly not on that case. That would be improper. But I thought in the policy, Barry, and maybe you can straighten me out on this, that an attorney could come and speak who may have a case, and he or she could speak if it was strictly limited to something that was either agenda related or something that they wanted to bring to the attention of the commission, so long as it was totally unrelated to the item upon which the matter was being litigated. Is that right? Or am I wrong about it? Does filing a case against?
I believe it says, if I'd have known the issue we have today, I would have certainly read it again before I came in here, but I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it says that if you have a pending litigation at all, that you cannot speak before the commission.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Let's yield to the state director.
Well, I'm yielding to me right now.
Let's yield.
So what I was finishing saying was that's what the policy says, and I think we should try to stick with the policies that we have. But then if you want to add something to it.
But that's correct.
What
Commissioner Manfred has correctly referred to the policy, directive number 800-08 CP. In that directive, it states individuals with pending legal matters versus DDSN, including administrative appeals, may not address the commission.
All right, now, is there anything, could that individual lawyer communicate? Is there anything that would block or
No,
say?
not as the policy is currently written.
Okay, so that person could communicate by way of a letter to the commissioners or whoever.
Yes.
That would not stop her from doing that.
Absolutely not.
Or private communication. I mean, she or he could contact me individually and
Yes.
say, here's the issue.
Yes.
Okay, if that's policy, that's policy.
Thank you. Continuing with the agenda, it's now time for public input, and it's 3 minutes. The first individual is Michelle, is it Schaefer? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right, and please try to limit yourself to 3 minutes. Ms. Lingard back there will notify us when we get to that point.
Good morning. It's actually a joint presentation, so.
Okay?
And we are glad. We thought it was 2 minutes, so we're really relieved that we have extra time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Michelle Schaefer, and I'm here today representing the Disability Services Provider Coalition. Heather Waddell is with me representing the Human Services Provider Association. The topic we would like to discuss with you all today is the current state of communication between DDSN staff, service providers, and a path forward toward improvement. In the past couple of years, providers have seen a decrease in opportunities to provide meaningful input with regards to directives, standards, and other DDSN processes that have a direct impact on the service delivery system, sometimes resulting in implementation issues or delays. During COVID, the use of virtual platforms such as Zoom were the only options available to anybody, and we're thankful for those. But currently, those tools are still being used nearly exclusively for meetings, often with features disabled, so that active participation from our side is not possible. While virtual platforms are time effective, they're not always conducive to robust discussion or to provide needed clarifications. We also aren't getting to know the DDSN new faces, all the new staff that have been hired here, and they're not getting to know us in the same way that they might have prior to COVID. We see this as a concern, and we would like to see us work together toward a satisfactory remedy for that.
Okay. With the implementation of fee-for-service, the provider network has developed a positive platform for discussion that we've had with the Department of Health and Human Services. They meet quarterly with a select group of providers representing both organizations and discuss topics that need correction, gain a pulse on current needs, and to start discussions on future endeavors. Recently, DHHS invited DDSN to join in those meetings, and we thought this might be a place to start at DDSN. Both the Human Service Provider Association and the Coalition would like to see regular face-to-face meeting opportunities to review items that impact us directly and encourage open discussion. We can be and should be seen as an asset to getting the job done for individuals and their families. While policy developers understand what may need to change within a system, they don't always have the current day-to-day service delivery experience to know the best way to implement those changes. Providers have got firsthand knowledge, and we have that working together, which allows the change to get off on a cooperative footing versus an adversarial one. We work in the people industry. Discussion, negotiation, and compromise are all components of that. It would be great to get back to this point with DDSN. Thank you for your time. Michelle and I both appreciate that very much.
Thank you. And noted. I love the term working together.
Yes, sir.
That's the key. At this time, we'll have Amy Davenport. Ms. Davenport, where are you? There you go. I know you was in the house.
New hip and new knee, so I'm a little slow.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I very much appreciate it. I'm a mom to a 38-year-old special needs child. She's lives at home with us. She attends a day program. We have the waiver administered by this commission, and our service coordination is through Bright Start. So on the 22nd of June, Stephanie will not really allow you to get in her mouth. I do brush her teeth. It's an effort, but we get that done. So we've always had her dental care done at the dental clinic across the street so that she can go to the operating room. She has many diagnoses that do not allow us to go into a dental office. For one, she's not getting a chair. She's not going to let you look at her mouth. She's not going to let you take an x-ray. And she's also allergic to any kind of narcotics, and so she has a compromised airway. So the operating room is the way that we go. And we've done this for years. We had not been in 2 years because of COVID and my hip and knee surgeries. And so she pulled her lip down on June 22nd and showed me she had an abscess tooth. So we called the dental clinic, and the receptionist was very firm to tell me that the books were closed. And I said, what do you mean they're closed? She said, we're not servicing or taking any appointments for special needs. at all. She said the OR has no slots until April of 2024. And so after a lot of talking, I got someone from the clinic to call me back. And we got an appointment on the 28th. And Dr. Bowser is who we saw, very, very nice doctor. And he agreed that indeed that needed to come out quickly. We had a shot of Rocephin. She doesn't swallow pills, so we had to have a shot. And our doctor said, this is a very short-term fix. I called our cardiologist. He said, you know, you've got to get her in. So I saw him and he said, unfortunately, I could get you in September. And I said, well, can you tell me why MUSC and Prisma, the two options for our special needs community, are closed? And he said, I have the training, I have the skill, what I do not have is an operating room slot. They're closed. He said, if I could get you in on a Monday, all I can do is extract. If I could get her in on a Wednesday, I might have enough time to repair a tooth, but I'm not guaranteeing that. So that's for, you know, that hampers our whole state, our whole community. So Stephanie indeed did get 3 teeth extracted on June 30th. And I prayed and some doors opened up. I called everybody I knew, being an advocate, having served on many committees. But, you know, that's not where it stops. I mean, we've got to do something. I told Dr. Bowser, I said, this is unconscionable. It's unacceptable and it's criminal. And he said, I agree with you. I'm sorry, I had some questions. May I email those questions to you? One of them being our special needs kids, if they're not eating, no nutrition, bowel obstructions. How many kids are losing placement because of behaviors, because of their teeth? And how many, what is magic about April of 2024? That's another question. So
Well, was that when the books were closed, so to speak?
yes.
Hey, Chairman, could I ask a question?
You don't, go ahead. No, we just note, go ahead. I'm gonna ask a question, but no, we just note, but go ahead.
The question is, tell us again, which, are you covered by a local DSN?
Yes, Rich Lex Board. Mhm.
Okay, the Rich Lex Board.
Mhm.
All right, and when you went to them with this, with the problem,
Right.
what did they say they could do?
They told me and you do have many dentists on the Medicaid approved list, and that's wonderful, and we're so thankful for that. If we could use that, that would be great, but you have a whole spectrum of people that can only go to the operating room. And she can't be sedated in an oral surgeon's office because without an anesthesiologist.
I got that part. Now, I'm asking, and I'm trying to understand this dichotomy, Chairman, that has crept up a number of times. You've got 38 DSN boards around the state that are independently operating.
Right.
We can't make them do certain things. My question is, what do you think DDSN statewide could do that your local DSN
Well,
has not been able to do?
Because all of the special needs community funnel into here. They come from MUSC, like when we go over to the dental clinics, they're from all over the state, come here to get an operating slot to go to the OR. So really these two hospitals are what all your DDSN boards clients feed to.
And Chairman, if I could comment to the group, it's not just special needs. I personally had an experience unrelated to special needs. I had surgery last year that took 6 months to get me scheduled. And the doctors basically told me that the operating time slots are so limited that they are literally pushing out those surgeries for just the general community. And I don't know what we can do about it.
That's what we will do. I'll ask the state chair to look into it and then get back to us.
If you could email us your concerns, if you could email us.
I will. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
We promise you that we'll look into it and you may not get the answer that you like, but you will.
Right.
You will get an answer. I didn't say may, you will get an answer.
Okay, thank you, and I
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Miller, if I could just note something for the record.
Go ahead.
And also, we need to go back, you inadvertently skipped tab 6, the approval of the commission meeting minutes.
I thought we did.
We did?
We did.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'd like to note for the record that Ms. Harrison has asked that I note for the record that she had requested to do public input and was not allowed to do public input pursuant to our directive that we previously discussed. The number is 808 CP, as she has pending litigation versus DDSN, and I indicated her that I would note that for the record, so that's what I'm doing.
So noted. Okay, let's go to item 8, committee business, policy committee, committee chair, Commissioner Barry Malthus.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. The policy committee met just 2 days ago, and for those that were not able to be there, we would appreciate it if you were next time. We are thankful to have each person who decides to be a part of that committee meeting that we have. And the first item on our agenda, for that meeting, what we're bringing before the commission is 131 DD, which is provider qualifications and contracting. Basically, it's that what DDSN does in order to contract with providers. It's a new policy that we have that relates to contracting with providers in order to deliver services to individuals relating to include Medicaid service waivers. And it is a new directive that establishes DDSN contracts through the providers, and the policy committee is presenting this. It has been out for public comment, and the policy committee is recommending it for approval. Again, it's 131 DD.
Very quick, Chairman, could I ask?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm on the committee and had this question. This only applies to the associated DSN boards and contracted service providers. To the contracted service providers, are they in sync only with as this directive relates? Are they only related to the 37 or 38 DSN? I call them affiliates, or would that apply to anything that DDSN does also? So how big is the scope? Is it just DSN?
We can ask Lori. I don't believe it's just the 38. I believe it's all, right?
It's any provider for any service that DDSN would issue a contract for. We issue a contract for providers who directly enroll with Medicaid to deliver Medicaid waiver services, and then we also issue contracts for DDSN state-funded services. So it's a process by which providers would apply to provide any service that is contracted by DDSN.
So it's part of the licensing. Would we call it part of licensing?
No, it's really a qualification of provider.
We want that provider, basically, that they're able to do all the things we need them to do.
All the
Yes.
providers have to be licensed though, right, Barry?
They also have to be
No.
licensed.
No?
No, only certain services require licensing.
Okay.
So historically, this process was run through the State Materials Management Office as a fixed price, well, initially an RFP, then a fixed price bid. We got approval through the state fiscal authority to not have to use MMO. MMO it includes a lot of extreme paperwork and stuff has to be run through there for our service providers. So this is the first step in setting up a qualifications process that is internal versus through MMO.
So when this document says subject to a requalifying process, the requalifying, you are not classifying as a licensure.
No.
Okay.
The qualifications process.
Just a qualification, and you check a box or something.
And if somebody needs to be licensed, that would be part of the qualification, right? Depending on what service it is.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Pretty good? Okay. Any other questions? Concerns? I need a motion.
Well, it's a motion and a second coming out of committee to approve it. And so now, when we have a motion and a second coming out of committee, so then we would just ask that we would vote.
Okay. So we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it, so ordered. Tab 4. Go ahead.
The next item on the agenda is, on the policy committee agenda is 41311 DD. And it was a COVID-19 vaccine requirement for staff in immediate care facilities. And it was to set forth requirements relating to that, but we are asking that, and the staff is asking for that policy to be made obsolete due to, thank goodness, due to COVID decreases and that sort of thing. So, and that these mandates are no longer required for COVID-related matters. So thankfully, we can make this one obsolete. So that comes as a motion and second out of committee.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, so ordered.
I'm assuming there's no further discussion, that's when we would discuss.
Old business, tab 5.
Let me jump in here, Mr. Chairman. May I, on tab 5?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
That's
one that I had
Yes.
mentioned a little while ago.
Yes.
And this has to do with former Chairwoman Rollison's list of items that she wanted basic updates or whatever. And there are some, I have found some issues with some of those that could be, the question should be modified so that there is not not security, but privacy style issues. So I would ask that this be withdrawn. And if we could have sort of a time frame, is 6 months okay to get a corrected?
Well, I was thinking we needed to make a,
Wait.
I was just gonna say that there's 20 items on that list, so it's quite large.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we might, in the next few months, make a priority list of 5 or 6 items. I actually have a priority list for me, but I'm not stuck on the priority list. But I just think we should consider making a priority list of 5 or 6 or 7 items, and then over the next few months, maybe she could give us an update on those, and then we could go to others. Because there's 20 on this list, and that's kind of big. But go ahead, what do you think?
So what we were requesting is to have ample time to make sure any information on the list that is confidential, has security concerns with it, that we had time to properly redact that,
Mhm.
and that we also had time to properly reflect the 22 other items. I think 6 months is ample time
Okay.
to do so. But we want to make sure the information that was going to be shared to the public was exhaustive and all-inclusive, that it wasn't missing anything, and then also didn't include anything that could potentially be a security breach.
Okay, and so six months, and that can always be revised to give you another little bit of time.
Correct.
But, and I like Barry's idea that if there are any items that we can go ahead and move on, 3 or 4 or 5 things that I would appreciate pedal to the metal of those.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
so
there's about 5 that I'd really like to.
we're not going to get into what they are.
But
What's the motion?
I would move that this item under tab 5,
Yes.
is that the way we, tab 5 be withdrawn? And it doesn't have to be part of the motion, but with the clear understanding that we will get information on that within about a 6-month period.
You good with that?
And earlier, a la what Barry is saying, if possible.
Can I get a second on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered. Next item on the agenda, tab 6, head and spinal cord injuries. None other than Mrs. Laurie. Oh, she's there.
I'm here.
She's there.
If you look up, I was there.
She moved.
I am here to give you an update on the head and spinal cord injury drop-in centers. As you'll recall, you guys approved funding for a full year back in January, but you asked for an update mid-year. So that's kind of what I'm here for. There's an update in your packet. I'm not going to read it to you because you guys are perfectly capable of doing that. Kind of a high-level view of where we are with it. The centers continue to try to increase their billing. There hasn't been as much of an increase in their ability to bill Medicaid for services as we had hoped. But just last month, you guys approved the new standards for independent living skills. As you'll recall, that's kind of an integral piece in trying to get these services funded through Medicaid. Although the service standards are approved, we got to get to provider qualification so we can actually get providers in to provide the service. So that is what you just approved today. So thank you for that. The qualifications are currently, the qualifications manual is currently, it's really just kind of a list, right, that we use, is at the Department of Health and Human Services for review. We hope to get that manual back quickly. We also, I believe, have to send the policy you approved today back to the SPA to get their approval on that. So I say all that to say that hopefully within the next month or so, we have a provider entry process so that we can get providers for that service. Once we get that stood up, then we can hopefully increase the Medicaid funding into those centers. I will say though, because of the population and the fact that a center doesn't have a ton of people because there's just not a ton of people in the area, they may require an extension of state funding if you guys are going to want to continue them come January. So I'm just kind of putting that bug out there. This is in, all of this is in the update that I sent you, but do y'all have any questions?
Boy, that sounds so complicated, much more than when I was asking some questions. I was one that was asking questions about it. I think, Chairman, that this was one of the items that is in one of the, I'm sorry, I'm blanking out my old age, the audits that was done a number of years ago. But how can I forget? Legislative Audit Council, I'm sorry, I apologize. But I thought that this was one of the items that was mentioned in one of, there were like 3 audits, and we had been trying to fulfill all that. Do you recall?
No, that's not. These are centers that were developed many years ago as kind of pilot projects for the population of people who have spinal cord injuries and traumatic brain injuries, because there are a lot of traditional day service models out there for people with intellectual disability and people with autism. And so this model was designed in 4 areas of the state, I believe. And they were fully state funded at one point, like all state money. Then we used a service through Medicaid it's the same service that's used in like mental health clubhouses. We ended up having to stop using that service because of some changes in the service. So now we're trying to find a Medicaid service that will help us fund it, because if we use Medicaid, we can serve more people, right? It costs more for us to use total state funding. So these centers, I think there are only 4, there are either 3 or 4 of them, I don't know offhand, but there are only a few of them in the state. They weren't part of any audit that I'm aware of.
You don't think so, really?
No, I don't think so either, David. I think she's right. I think this is a separate issue. I'm trying to think what you're thinking of, but I don't think it's.
The audit finding, as I understood it, but it's been so long since I read the previous audits, we just had the most recent, that's not what I'm talking about. It would go back a couple of audits, and I think what I read was that there was an availability that wasn't basically being utilized, and so it was encouraging DDSN to sort that out and see if, that's what I thought it was, but perhaps it was just a suggestion and it might not have been in the audit.
Here's what we'll do. We'll ask, Director to look into
Are
it
you
and
referring
then
to the
get.
2018?
18, well, it could have been. It could have been. Yeah.
We have a chart of all those recommendations, we'll look and try to figure out what you're asking for.
I could be
I
completely.
am 99.999% sure this has nothing to do with it, but if you're concerned about that finding, we can look and see what that is and then try to give you an update
Yeah,
on
I'm
that.
not sure precisely what is going on with these centers and how that could relate to the issue of whether it was in an audit or not. The issue of whether or not we are fully addressing those that have spinal cord injuries. And if it's a matter of monies not being available, then the idea of Medicaid kicks in as to whether or not those monies might be available some sort of. That's all the questions I got. I think Lori knows what I'm after. And
Okay.
Sure.
And then she'll get that back to you. Any other commissioners have?
Yeah, I have, so DHS is reviewing the criteria list for the potential providers.
Remember, the qualifications list is for all providers of all services. So that's what they're looking at. It's not.
Not just this.
Right, because the independent living skills requirements are outlined in the standards.
Yeah.
So the big qualifications process is about any provider of any service, and that's what they're reviewing. But we
Okay, so
need
this
that
is a piece of
vehicle,
it.
right, we
Okay.
need that vehicle to enroll these providers.
And then they're expected, like you said, maybe a month for open?
I mean, I would hope, but
Right.
fingers crossed, right?
All right.
I would the only thing I was gonna add is I would ask that we have an update on this in the next few months to see what's going on with that and with.
With the qualifications process?
Well, with the qualification process and with how, another update on how this is going to see if we're gonna have to add more state funding into it and all that.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess, because if we ask for it like 6 months from now, I guess we would need to know like when.
Well, 6 months from now would be when I would come back to you and say, we're recommending this amount of state funding, right? So,
So an update, like Barry said, would be.
sure, we can do one, we can do one in between, like 3 months from now.
Like 3 months from now.
Okay, sounds good. Having no further question,
Yeah,
thank you
next.
for your knowledge and your expertise.
I'm next on the agenda.
Go ahead.
I went on vacation and they assigned me a bunch of agenda items while I was gone. So,
Tab 7?
yes.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is we are seeking approval from the commission to post a solicitation for intensive care coordination services to people who are in crisis situations. So we currently are experiencing a little bit of an access problem in case management, particularly around cases who are in extreme crisis. And what I mean is people who have been dropped at the hospital and left, people that have no place to live, people that a traditional case manager who carries a caseload of 50 or 60 people has been trying to locate a residential provider and they can't find anybody to serve the person, right? So these are going to be in our hopes. We're asking current case management providers who are in good standing, who have a high score, to submit to us a proposal to carry a caseload of no more than 15 people who are in these situations. And we're asking them to specify a region in which they will provide those services, because you don't tend to find all those people in one county, right? You kind of have this area. And then we also put in there a no eject, no reject policy. There is some kind of, they have to agree to some specialized training that DDSN is going to do. We're going to fund a training for kind of a coach for person-centered thinking training, which is something that we purchase off-site. So that's really, we kind of piggybacked on what we did with the solicitation that you guys approved for the kids residential that was recent, to try to build some capacity in our system to deal with some of these complex cases.
Yes, sir.
Right. I'm not going to call names or anything or just give much description. I got one communication from a concerned parent who had a child on the autism spectrum, but didn't seem to be able to get through to the caseworker and all that. And she had gone round and round. It could be she was giving them a very hard time, but they basically put her off limits as far as communications went. Very concerned, obviously, about the child. Then I came across something that I saw, this was public now on television, where the mother had a child under the autism spectrum, and a similar, it was a different people, not the same people. What is it, and basically couldn't get the services that she felt the child needed, and he, I think, was around 13, 14, 15-ish, along in there, I believe. I watched it on video. Where are we in trying to deal with situations? I mean, I think we got about, under our general auspices, 20,000, Constance, 20,000 people or so. That is that a number that resonates with you? The number of folks we're servicing, either through DSN or
40,000.
Total of 40,000.
closer to 40,000? Well, obviously, you're going to have blow-ups. You're going to have things that fall through the cracks and all that. And I don't know how you keep a tally on so many things that could be boiling over there, and then you got to flip that one over here, and why isn't this? But you know, still, it's got to be done. And the reporter basically commentary was that we're not doing our job, being DDSN. How do we deal with the complexity and totality of what we have in front of us to be doing the job that we're supposed to be doing, and yet you'll find these anomalies, and that could constitute, well, it's not just an anomaly, it is a problem that is inherent with, is systemic within the agency, that there's not going to be good response to communication problems. Am I making sense? The question is, how do we go about handling that and deal with that to minimize the number of complaints, so that we've got, these are the communications, and this is what we have tried to do about it. We find that it was impossible to accomplish what was, a case file, so that we don't find ourselves being under scrutiny and attacked for something that was not our fault. Or maybe we get to the bottom of a systemic problem that might be present, where we just are systemically fumbling the ball, so to speak. And Lori, I don't mean you or staff. I mean just because much of the problem could be the 38 DSNs out there, and they've got entities also, and we're not in the ball game with those.
So you talked about it a lot there, right?
Right.
And I think the answer to your question is, at every point in time, my goal, the executive staff's goal, is to meet the needs of the people that we're charged to serve, right? And so along the way, you're right, there's a million things going on at all different levels, in all different places. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff, there's the first step in doing what you're talking about is strategic planning, right? And that's going on right now. What do we need to do? Because from this view, we got to support the end user, which is not me calling that mama and arranging what she needs. It is making sure our system is set up to serve that person the way that they need to be served. And the people who are out there need a million different things. It's everything from somebody who really doesn't need anything. They just want to get on our rolls in case they do at some point, because they're in school and everything's handled right now, to a person that's in massive crisis, living in a tent and doesn't have anywhere to go, and they're addicted to drugs, right? So there's everything along the way.
Or needs their teeth extracted, and
Right.
we can't find a...
There's everything along the way. So as a system, we have to figure out what we can do to support the service delivery. What I'm asking you to prove today is something that we've looked at from a systems perspective and said, it's really hard for a case manager who has 60 cases with all varying levels of things going on for those 60 people, right? Some of them don't need much, some of them need a lot. For a crisis to happen, and that case manager to have tried everything in their toolbox, and it's not working. And so what's happening is they're getting calls every day from the hospital. What are you doing? We're getting calls up here. So this is an effort in trying to build some capacity closer to the people, right, within our provider network, to be able to address those critical services.
And so with that, I heard you use the term strategic planning.
Sure.
That's on the, and we applaud that. So we'll wait for further response back to Commissioner Thomas's question.
Do you agree that this kind of a rapid response sort of way to think of it? Maybe?
She hit the nail on the head because she says that they're doing a strategic piece now. Let's let them get that back to us over time.
And I think that's going to give us some big, broad areas that we need to work on as a system, right? To try to do exactly what you're saying.
Excellent.
Serve people better.
So this one is only for, what you're asking us to prove here is only for one of these regions?
So
Or to
we
cover
hope,
four?
it depends on how many we get, right? It's kind of like when we would like to have at least one of these in every region, right?
Okay.
But it depends on what we get, because at this point, it's going to be up to the current provider network and what they believe they can accomplish.
So we're not limiting just one, it says pick a region and do what you would want.
We kind of know where these cases are, you know, how many we have. We have a lot of them that we're trying to work.
Get something from that.
We're
region.
trying to work a lot of them in state level case management, and some of them we probably will keep kind of at this level, but there's kind of this group of people that we just really want the providers to kind of build some capacity to do it. And unfortunately, you know, providers for case management are paid on a 15-minute unit rate. For a provider to kind of step out there and hire somebody to serve only 10 or 15 people in the hopes that they're even going to get 10 or 15 referrals for these people to be able to bill, it just doesn't make sense. So we're trying to give them an ability to ask us for what it would take to get this set up.
Excellent. So we need a motion for case management service solicitation.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
We need to go, Robert's Rules of Order says further discussion, and then you go to, and then you vote. So once we have a motion and a second, then we should have further discussion as a technical matter, and then we should vote.
Do you have any discussion? I thought we were having discussion.
We did, but I'm saying,
I thought we were having
we
discussion.
were having a discussion, but technically you're supposed to say, is there any further discussion? And then, I don't have any other one, but I'm just saying, technically it should say further discussion, and then we say no, and then
We have
say
a
no.
motion and we have a second. All in favor? Ayes have it, so ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a financial update by none other than Mr. Quincy Swagger. We're talking about money now.
I have a very brief update. Keep in mind, these are preliminary year-end figures. We still have a few more deadlines we have to make before the CG ends up cutting off transactions. So hopefully next week we'll have a final expenditure figure here. But if you'll, under tab 8, you'll see the year-to-date performance of the adopted fiscal year 23 spending plan in the amount of $939 million. Our preliminary fiscal year-end numbers indicate the agency spent approximately $324 million in agency cash. The direct fee-for-service Medicaid billing expenditures through June were approximately $668 million, which in turn caused the 5.77% overage due to a lot of those rate increases that were done in October and in January of last year, or this fiscal year we're still in. So we are good as far as agency cash, and we're in projection, but we're over with what HHS has kind of done throughout the year. based on the spending plan we approved.
But we're not in jeopardy some sort of.
No, this is, we transferred about $190 million in general funds to HHS over the last 2 fiscal years. And so all of those expenditures are on their books, and those match dollars are now on their books. So it's not coming out of our agency cash. But we're just kind of reporting on it because we put it in the spending plan.
One last follow-up, Chairman, if I could. So we're not, we had something happen back 5-7 years ago, that we're not in jeopardy by way of somebody else's system saying we're doing something wrong.
No.
Okay, everything's okay.
Everything's fine as far as our financials are concerned. The PHE is kind of.
Chairman, I like good news, but we've got to know the bad news. And we can never find ourselves ever again in the commission in the position of not knowing what's going on. We've got to have total transparency between the administration, which is, as I have seen it in the last couple of years, exactly what has been happening, I think. So, but we can't be surprised. So thank you.
I'm definitely monitoring.
Thank you. I wanted just to make that clear.
Definitely doing a lot of monitoring to make sure we're not going to have any issues as far as agency cash is concerned. I do a lot of monitoring monthly to make sure that the metrics I have in place, that we're able to identify anything early and let leadership know if there's going to be an issue.
You're doing an excellent job. I appreciate it.
As a tangentially, we should be having our internal auditor showing up also at some point. Do we not want to include?
She's on the,
She's actually
she's
in the
on
back of the.
I'm
every
saying,
other agenda, I believe. Is it quarterly, Courtney?
We'll discuss with the newly named chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, and we'll work on a regular reporting schedule for
I
internal
want
audit.
to make sure, also, when I came on the commission, I don't know if it was simultaneous with, whoever, we didn't even have the internal auditor. I would hesitate using the word allowed, but the internal auditor just wasn't there ever. And so we had to
It had been, I think, a couple of years before he had done a presentation.
Well, so the point in a circular sort of way to get to my concern and make sure we're always very, very clear of the commission as a whole. I really think we should have the internal auditor, if not every time we meet, at least every other time, just so that we can have questions. And
I think that's on the schedule now, every other time.
She's on the schedule every other time.
Every
now.
other time.
okay, well, that's fine.
Okay. And to the executive staff, thank you very, very much. We need, as a motion now, we need to deal with the financial update. I need a motion. Any further questions?
Is the motion just answering or confirming what?
It's to approve this report that he just gave us, but there was one thing I wanted to ask before we did that.
Well, I'll make a motion and then the second, and then just under discussion, can he?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that we accept the report or whatever he needs to come out of the commission.
You fine. Get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
With further discussion, let me just ask, this is really not directly relating to money, but I'll say it now that since Lori's still in here. We just said the number of people we serve, I have down is about 21,500, and we just said it was 40. So what is the?
So the people that are eligible for services are around 40, but the people that received the service last month was probably around 21,000. So
Minute now, so people that are eligible for services, so you mean people that could be serviced at some point?
yes.
Okay, all right, all right.
Inactive status.
In what?
Inactive status, right? Like they're not getting any services right now.
This,
But they could conceivably, because they're eligible, is what we're saying about the 40, right? Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify that. So we're actually serving about 21,500, just so we know.
that's helpful, Chairman.
Yes.
This kind of gets us to the issue that I've been harping on for the basic part of a year and a half or so about waiting lists and things like that, and making sure we get to the entire community, if at all possible, as close to 100% as possible. And what is designated or defined as inactive would have been part of the question. Remember, we're going to do some special meetings on that, And we had a lot of things come up, so we've sort of postponed that, but
Remember, you have a motion and a second on the floor.
I'm discussing in general the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm discussing in general the whole thing.
Okay.
Right, and hopefully at some point in the next number of months, we'll be able to get back to waiting lists and be able to discuss that. I'd love to. But anyway.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. All in favor?
Motion, say aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered. Next item on the agenda is Director Constance Holloway. Your updates, please.
So I'll be very brief. I want to thank everyone for your attendance here, and giving me an opportunity to update, the commission and the public on all the exciting things we're doing at the agency. So starting this month, we begin asking our one regional center per month to nominate 1 and 2 employees, for recognition. This month, we're recognizing 2 employees from Coastal Center. Coastal Center has nominated Saparna Misra and Kelly Combs. Saparna is a nutritionist and has been at Coastal Center for 6 years. She ensures residents receive the proper nutrition, maintain healthy diets, and educates them about the right choices. She is described as a compassionate leader and an invaluable member of the Coastal team. Kelly is a therapist aide and has been at Coastal for 2 years. She works with occupational and physical therapists to make sure our residents are getting quality care, and also she transports residents to their campus activities. She is described by her colleagues as a creative, selfless member of the Coastal team. We appreciate both of the great staffers and what they do at Coastal Center. Next, I'd like to delve into some agency updates as well as some fun, exciting things we're doing. Susan Davis and Becky Peters, who I don't see in the room, have been doing amazing work with our employment and day services programs. They've been holding employment training sessions with providers so those who take the training can better assist those with disabilities with finding employment. Additionally, recently they attended a conference where they discussed ways to assist students with finding employment after graduating high school. Elsewhere in the agency, our quality management team participated in the fiscal year 23 National Core Indicators in-person survey process, which wrapped up last month. Through that survey, more than 500 interviews were completed with adults with intellectual disabilities receiving at least one service in addition to case management. About 2/3 of our providers have completed the survey, and we are asking the rest of them to complete it ahead of the July 31st deadline. We also have some updates about renovation projects across our regional centers. At Midlands, we completed a renovation totaling $460,000 at the Walmart dorm, including consumer and staff bathroom upgrades, ceiling replacement and painting, flooring replacement, and wall painting. I want to particularly highlight and thank all the staff for all their hard work in regards to Walnut. That building was especially important for one of our projects. I even went over to the building and played sort of a construction manager. I talked to all the guys that were doing the project and put a little fire up under them to get that project completed and as quickly as we could. At Coastal, we were awarded a $42,000 contract for weather protection window film, which can protect it against Category 3 hurricanes. And at PD, we are at phase 2 of a $69,000 fencing project, which will provide additional 3,200 feet of fence on the backside of the campus. As usual, our autism division has been hard at work with Director Stephanie Turner conducting trainings with various law enforcement agencies across the state, pediatric staff, and even with summer camp staff at the South Carolina State Museum. I affectionately call Stephanie the Beyonce of the agency. She has, in the last 6 months within the last 6 months that I'm aware of, she has been actively going out and training individuals in regards to autism, and she's often highlighted on local media and media around the state. Lastly, I want to highlight, next to last, I want to highlight is that we recently named Georgetown County as the year's recipient of our Golden Palmetto Award for their dedicated service to those with disabilities. They have been notified of this achievement and are excited to have Commissioner Rollison at their next meeting present the award to them at their general session meeting next month. Lastly, but not leastly, I would like to highlight a longtime employee of ours who is going to retire next month. Tommy Smith started at DDSN on February 17, 1988.
Where's Tommy?
Tommy's not currently here. Tommy is, but we are excited that we were gonna have a retirement party next Friday, Quincy, I believe it is, where Tommy will be in attendance after working almost 35 and a half years as a clerical specialist in finance. Tommy is retiring from the agency next Friday. Tommy is an avid Gamecock fan, so we hope to include some Gamecock, something special in regards to Gamecocks next week. Tommy always greets everyone with a warm smile and calls everyone buddy. He's always willing to help, and he takes special joy in giving others work. Two of his favorite sayings that he loves to say when you meet him in the hallway in the agency are, "Get to work," or "Your boss is looking for you." Tommy has been an extreme blessing to this agency. I can single-handedly say I often look forward to his morning stops by my office, and when he comes by and he gives me the fist pound and he says, "Good morning, buddy," he is going to be extremely missed. And we just want to make sure we highlighted him in the commission meeting. I hope he's currently moving states. He's moving from South Carolina to North Carolina to reside with his brother. And I'm hoping that they're watching and that he knows how much he will greatly miss them. And we're gonna share and shower him with love next Friday. That's the plan.
Amen.
Tell Tommy to take his hands off the steering wheel.
So that's my update.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge, you noticed that one of the commissioners is not here. Commissioner Stephanie Rollinson. She's at a funeral. That's the only reason why she is not here. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. You don't want nothing going out that's not true. So and we just want to acknowledge that that's the only reason why she's not here. Executive session, I would need a motion. We're going to go into executive session to discuss the hiring of a state director for South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. Need a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered.
Stay here.
I don't think we need to stay in this room. I think that's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Time is 12:12 p.m. We rose out of executive session. No motions were made, no votes taken. Is there any other business of this commission?
Chairman,
Yes.
I have a motion to make, and I move and make a motion to appoint Constance Holloway as the State Director of the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs.
There a second?
Second. When you say she's currently interim director and you're asking for her to be director, I think.
The motion is fine. He's just making a motion. Repeat the motion again.
I make a motion to appoint Constance Holloway as the State Director of South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs.
And it was seconded by Commissioner Coher. Questions? All in favor?
Well, I just asked that we vote by individual member according to the Robert's Rules of Order.
That'll be fine. So those that I start with Commissioner Malfris, how do you vote?
The reason I wanted it by individual member is so I could say something afterwards, which I'd like
We're
to
not-
put in the minutes, please. We can ask anything to put in the minutes that we say. And so, according to Robert's Rules of Order. So I'd just like to say that my vote is no, because I do not feel the commission did its due diligence by allowing others to apply.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. Aye.
Commissioner Coher. Commissioner Woodhead. And I'm also in the aye, or affirmative. So moved.
4-1.
4-1.
Right.
That was a vote.
I will be the first to, since I made the motion, to congratulate you, and I hope that you will accept.
I accept.
Thank you. Any other business of this commission?
Just a quick thing.
Yes, sir.
This coming Friday, the 28th, the South Carolina Brain Injury Leadership Council is having their meeting of the Brain Injury Association. It's an all-day event. It's a wonderful meeting. I've been there before. It hasn't been for a couple of years because of COVID, I believe, but if you want to attend that, it'll be very informative.
Okay. As the chair of this commission, Commissioner, State Director Constance Holloway, it is our pleasure to have you to serve as our State Director for South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Moves.
Amen.
Amen.
Meeting adjourned. You get it.